Hey, so welcome back again. And today I've the pleasure to be joined by Richard Berman-Hardman. Richard, welcome.
Hi, how are you?
Very well, thank you. Very well. Richard, do you want to tell me where you are?
Well, the first thing I should do is say welcome to the oldest continually surviving tropical rainforest on the planet. I'm at Skyrail in Cairns, which for those of you who don't know is about 10 metres in paradise. And I'm at the foot of the world's oldest, or one of the longest cableways on the planet, staring out looking at the rainforest. So not a very stressful work environment for me.
And you haven't lived up there for many years. You telling me you've got a bit of an interesting background. Do you want to start by introducing what you used to do and how you got to where you are today?
I can do. I'm not sure how interesting it is. I suppose if you start with the geographics, I'm originally from the United Kingdom, so I spent my whole life trying to get away from cold weather, which is why I think I've ultimately ended up here. But my background is ostensibly in tourism. I have a tourism and a management degree, a double degree, and also an MBA. But when I left uni the first time around, unfortunately, things didn't go too well for me, and I ended up in jail.
You better explain that.
Yeah, I hope nobody tuned out after I said that. No, just to put that in context, I was the general manager of the old Melbourne Jail down in Melbourne, which is the place where 136 people were executed over a number of years, including the infamous Ned Kelly. So I worked, I guess, straight out of school or out of university. I went straight into a different slant on the conservation, in the conservation economy, and have landed here. By way, I stayed with the old Melbourne Jail, which was operated and owned by the National Trust. I was with the National Trust for, I think, 7 or 8 years and ended up in a senior role there, looking after all their properties, ships, houses, mansions, lots of things that lost a lot of money, so that was edifying. And then from jail and from ships and houses that lost money, I ended up at a place called Sovereign Hill, which is in Ballarat, an hour or so from Melbourne, living in the coldest part of Antarctica for about a decade, spending my life pretending I was living and working in the 1850s. And I thought that was old enough. I thought that was a very historic place to work. And then by way and effect, I've landed myself in one of the oldest landscapes, one of the oldest geographical or biodiverse regions on the planet. So I've kept going back in time, and I've finally found a place that's warm.
I've never heard Ballarat regarded as part of the Antarctic, but it does make sense. It's a very dry place as well, and I think you were telling me that one of the delights of being up in Cairns is to live somewhere where you have the pleasure of rainfall, which of course is out of the grasp of much of the Australian continent for the majority of time. What was your first impression, you and your family, when you first arrived in Cairns and when you first saw the Skyrail?
Well, I've been a frequent visitor to Cairns with my family for many years. We holidayed up here and always saw Cairns as our chill out zone, if you like. So we're well used to being well versed in being surrounded by natural beauty. The first time I went on Skyrail with my family, I actually thought to myself, well, that's a huge machine, both in terms of the kit itself, you know, the cableway, but also in terms of the business, and sort of saw it as a big tourism enterprise and jumped on it expecting to be really fascinated by the machine of the business itself. And then as we took off from Smithfield, to use that expression, I soon worked out very, very quickly that Skyrail wasn't a mode of transport or just a way from get to Smithfield to Coranda at the top of the mountain. It genuinely was a way to connect with a natural environment of great significance in a way that I'd personally never done before. And as we're heading up and realising we're traversing, like I said before, the opening of this interview, traversing one of the oldest landscapes on the planet, you head up the mountain, you look and you can see the bird life and the trees and just the sheer beauty of the environment. And then if you look over your right shoulder, got another World Heritage Area, because obviously the Wet Tropics is an important World Heritage Zone. So on a global scale, it's a significant landscape. But if you look over your right-hand shoulder, you look back, and you can see the fringes of the Great Barrier Reef. And most people in Australia, or a lot of people in Australia, know that Far North Queensland is the only place where two World Heritage Areas collide, and to be sitting on Skyrail, sandwiched in between the two, is a really remarkable experience and really good for the soul.
So you mentioned did you say it's one of the longest cable cars in the world?
Yes, when it was built, it's actually our 25th anniversary this year. But when it was built 25 years ago, it was the longest gondola cableway on the planet. It's actually not a very easy thing to work out where you stand in the scheme of things, but we figure we're about the fourth longest gondola cableway on the planet now. So just as a feat of engineering in its own right, it's an impressive unit.
So you in 2018, well, let's just start by saying that the cable car, as we were seeing on those other pictures, traverses some of the Barron Falls, which is one of the large rivers that flows off the Atherton tablelands and cascades down into Cairns off the escarpment there. Tell me about 2019. I've got a bit of video queued up with a bit of sound, so we'll see how we go with that, because I think the sound is quite important. In 2019, there was a particularly spectacular event, wasn't there?
Yeah, that's exactly right. So Cairns generally gets just under 2.5 metres of rainfall a year. At the end of 2018, leading into the start of 2019, Dindin, as the Jabbergai people, the traditional owners of the land up here call it, was in absolute full flow. So usually 2 or 3 days after a decent rainfall, the falls are flowing and very, very impressive. But in 2019, we had what's classified as a 1 in 50 year rain event up here. As a result, we had 2 days in a row where we had around half a metre of rain. So again, put that into context. I know you're speaking to me from Melbourne now, and I come from down those parts. A metre of rain is not, you'd be lucky to get that in a whole year in Victoria, particularly over the last 10, 15 years as global warming's started to take hold. But to get that much rain in one day was quite remarkable. So to stand at the top of the falls, we grabbed our kids and jumped on Skyrail and stood at the lookout, and a lot of the locals were doing the same, and some of the locals were jumping over the other side of the waterfall where Queensland Rail runs a train service, a tourist train service. So the whole rim of the falls was lined with people, and we watched as megalitres of water just rushed over the edge. And to put it into perspective, something I've actually caught and put on my Insta feed a while back was a huge tree. It must have been a 35, 40 metre long rainforest tree, just fly over the top of the falls, just like a tiny little matchstick falling into a bathtub. And without any noise, without any crash bang, because the roar of the water was so complete that you couldn't even decipher or hear this tree hitting the bottom of the falls. Quite remarkable. So I'm very, very lucky. I timed my period of residence up here very, very well to be able to see that. And every local who was up here, none of us took that for granted. It was a real privilege to see it flowing like that.
So you must. So each day, a typical working day for you, I presume, is you ride the cable car to work. Or do you work at the top, or do you work at the bottom of the hill?
No, I work at the bottom of the hill.
Shame.
Yeah, bottom of the pole, bottom of the heap. And I get to drive to work, but that's not so bad in its own right. I get to drive again. The whole of Cairns, for those of you who know this part of the world, know that just you look left, look right, look up, look down. There's just beautiful aspects everywhere. So I drive a very stressful 10-minute drive along the side of a mountain, along the foot of the mountains, and end up at Skyrail and Smithfield. And unfortunately, I get to sit at the bottom of the mountain, but I get to look up it and just look to my left just then, as you saw, and I have quite an immense vista. And I'm lucky. I always find a good excuse to jump on the cableway at least once or twice a week to head up into the forest and pause and reflect on what I'm doing professionally. And also, it is an amazing space, a place for contemplation when you're on the cableway. You kind of refocus your life when you're doing it as well. And I'm very, very fortunate. I haven't got over the whole riding on the cableway thing. It's not something that I take for granted and never will.
Yeah, and we're certainly very fond of it as an opportunity when we have any guests coming. Inevitably, people go up to the Atherton Tablelands, and one way of getting up there is just to drive up to Coranda. The other way is to organise to have somebody meet you at Coranda and take the cableway on the way up instead, which is always a pleasure. So you're obviously shut down at the moment. Things would be a bit quiet, but Queensland's starting to open up a little. Have you got what are your hopes, do you reckon, for the coming months? Are you expecting to see a rise in travellers again?
Yeah, look, to start with, it's incredibly surreal for a big beast of a machine that runs 364 days of the year to be sitting dormant. It's quite a sobering sight, not just for me, but for everyone that lives in Cairns. And I think Skyrail, when we eventually do turn again, will be a fairly symbolic thing for Cairns and the whole town itself. But in terms of what we expect for the future, everybody who's on this call, who's worked in the tourism industry for any length of time, knows that we're all incredibly stupid to be working in this industry in some ways, because it is so volatile and so prone to or so exposed to economic and social environmental forces, and so it's not surprising we've been hit by COVID-19. But we're also immensely privileged because we are a genuine community, both in terms of the tourism community here in Cairns, and like concentric circles that spreads out. It's a Queensland thing, it's an Australian thing, and it's an international thing. We're all part of this big global tourism community, particularly in the ecotourism space. I feel that the ecotourism community that I rub shoulders with is incredibly smart, incredibly resilient, and we've got absolutely no doubt that we'll be back in business. From a trade perspective, here in Cairns, Cairns is one of the first places into the COVID-19 tunnels, I keep calling it, and without a shadow of a doubt, we'll be probably one of the last places in Australia to come out of it. We're hoping and expecting to be operating before Christmas, and that's quite sobering when you think that's a 6-month time frame. Unfortunately for us, it's the best thing for us, not unfortunately for us, but one of the positives for us is that you have to jump on a plane to get here pretty much. So it means when you get here, you have a nice, relaxing, quiet holiday in a beautiful environment. But the fact we're in the middle of nowhere, per se, is also up against us at this time, because unlike the Sunshine Coast, using that Queensland context, or the Gold Coast, you can't drive from a major capital here. So it will take quite some time, but we'll be back.
Excellent. Well, we've got to actually get together with some people this afternoon to talk about the Daintree. So we'll certainly be featuring some discussion about you and others in that area. And you mentioned ecotourism. We're obviously here with Ecotourism Australia. You guys are accredited. Good reasons for that you've explained. And as you say, it's when people do get out, I would encourage everyone to at least try and consider booking with an organisation that is a member, for reasons that are probably obvious already, and to drop online, visit Skyrail Cairns on Facebook, on the web, and yeah, if you're considering a visit to the to the far north Queensland rather, then hopefully people will now know to drop in and visit you as well. Richard, thank you so much for your time. It's been a pleasure to meet you. Good luck with everything, and I hope, we for a very quick recovery and out of the other end of this current lockdown.
Thanks so much. Thanks for the opportunity to speak, and we look forward to welcoming everybody to Cairns and to Skyrail specifically, hopefully before Christmas.
Excellent. Thanks, Richard.
Bye.
Bye.